You know, I'm a lucky guy. I say it a lot, but it's true. I'm a very lucky guy. And I could go through a litany of things that have made my life what it is and have contributed to my happiness, my growth, my well-being. But pretty much, I'm a lucky guy, and I realize that everybody in everybody's life, perhaps even my own spiral string of lives, are not lucky. But I've been lucky, and the reason I bring that up is because I've been writing now since, professionally, since 1989 officially, but I started the writing in 1988. Anyway, I took the phone off the hook so it won't ring. And I was lucky. I was lucky that when I got interested in all of this magic stuff, I was lucky to come under the wing of or the wings of some very knowledgeable and experienced and historic characters. I'm speaking particularly of Grady McMurtry, Phyllis Seckler, and Israel Regarde, and along with Helen Parsons Smith. I just lucked into those relationships. And when the O.T.O, resurrected O.T.O, was in formation, I was lucky to receive that charter for Haru Raha Lodge O.T.O in Southern California. And I was lucky to be surrounded by a fabulous group of brilliant people who were also being attracted to Aleister Crowley's work and things like that. And the lodge was just a phenomenon. And one of the lodge members, that person that was attracted to the Crowley's work, was Christopher S. Hyatt, who I was familiar with his book Undoing Yourself, which is a psychological classic, Jungian. He was also the publisher of, or the latest and final publisher of the works of Israel Regarde, and Timothy Leary, and Robert Anton Wilson. And he was a member of our Monday Night Magic class and a member of our lodge. Now, I hadn't written a damn thing, but I had, for about 11 years at that time, been hosting a weekly magic class in our home there in Costa Mesa. And so in order to facilitate that magic class, I had to every week pull myself together to at least pretend to intellectually or rationally discuss the tenets of magic and thelemic magic in particular. Well, anyway, in 1988, Christopher Hyatt, that was his pen name. Okay, his I'm sure you know what his other name was, but for courtesy's sake, we'll still refer to him as Christopher Hyatt. called me up, literally right in the middle of my Liber Samic invocation of the Holy Guardian Angel process that I was engaged in every morning. Called up and asked if I would want to contribute something for his new book, and it was The Secrets of Western Tantra was the book, and I'd never done anything like that before. But the cosmic significance of being right sort of in the middle of a formal magical in-house magical retirement for the Holy Guardian Angel, and then the phone rings, and it's Christopher Hyatt asking if I want to help contribute to his new book. I was lucky. I was just lucky. Okay, but I'd never written anything before, and I had to borrow a word processor from my friend Steve Abbott, and learn how to use that. I could type pretty fast, but what was I going to write? Here's a sort of an expert on psychology and things like that. What could I possibly do? Now, but it was too attractive for me to pass up, and the preface of the book was by Robert Anton Wilson. So I could have a chance my name to appear in a book, with Christopher Hyatt and Robert Anton Wilson and Israel Regardie. Israel Regardie was in it too. He had passed away, but his essay called Occult Eugenics, which was anyway, I thought I would share what young Babylon in 1988, going into 1989, my first published contribution to the world of magical literature. It's really short, so don't worry. In the newest edition of this, it appears as Appendix 4, Another Perspective on Infinite Love and Tantra. Oh, not only that, but Secrets of Western Tantra is still published. I believe it's still in print by New Falcon. Perhaps, I don't know for sure, but it might also be published by Original Falcon. So just look it up. Secrets of Western Tantra, Sexuality of the Middle Path by Christopher S. Hyatt. I'm sure they won't object to me plugging their book. Another Perspective on Infinite Love and Tantra by Lon Milo DuQuette. By young Lon Milo DuQuette. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. The myth of original sin is perhaps the single most destructive concept ever to influence the mental health of humanity. That's my opening words to the world. Here I am. I have something to say. The myth of original sin is perhaps the single most destructive concept ever to influence the mental health of humanity. The first 4 chapters of Genesis may have been enlightening to the handful of adepts studying Kabbalistic cosmology for whom and by whom it was written. But its misinterpretation and misuse by a menagerie of 2 millennia. See, there I go. I'm still doing shit like that. But its misinterpretation and misuse by a menagerie of nearly 2 millennia of priestcraft has proven to be the true original sin of Western civilization. Recently, on one of the Christian television networks, I witnessed a monstrous illustration. Now, back in 1988, okay, there was Pat Robertson's Christian television network, and there was the Trinity Broadcasting Company in its infancy. They started right there in Costa Mesa, California, where I was living. And that's Jan and Paul Crotch, and it later turned into a huge thing. But in those days, their programming, I'm digressing here, I'm sorry. Their programming was made up of small recordings or videos from public access or small church, provincial churches, Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama. And they all had their own little shows, and that was part of the Trinity Broadcasting programming at the time. And one of the children's shows I was watching in horror. Oh, that's what I'm talking about here. Now they've gotten really slick. So, okay. I was watching a children's program aimed at Christian pre-teenagers. Okay, I admit to a small level of spiritual masochism. Constance always says, turn that off. Why are you watching that? Okay. A segment of the program was dedicated to questions mailed in by viewers in a sort of Dear Abby format. And the show's hostess would answer from a Christian perspective. Now, I've got to add that I had a suspicion because of the wording, the gospel lingo wording of some of these letters from children were actually just written by the hostess themselves, so she could answer. Okay. Now I can't prove that, but I think this letter I'm about to read, she wrote it herself so she could answer it in her own way. Even though they're Christian, I don't think they're above that. One youngster wrote that his preteen friends were always telling him bad jokes, and that it even passed around a magazine with bad pictures of women. Guilelessly, he wrote that although he knew that jokes and magazines were sinful, they gave him a feeling inside that he enjoyed. He wanted to know if his feelings were evil, and if so, what should he do to get rid of them? After reading the letter aloud, the show's hostess, who was dressed as a cowgirl, answered in condescending baby talk that even though the youngster was still only a child, he, like all of us, had sinned against God because of the sin of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. The, quote, dirty feeling, unquote, her words, not his, was caused by the presence of this sin in all of us. She counseled him to pray to Jesus, especially at bedtime. Admit to him that he was a sinner. Invite him into his heart and ask for the strength not to enjoy the feeling. She then gave him the sage advice to tell his friends to stop telling bad jokes and sharing the magazine with him because they made him feel, quote, all dirty inside. Of course, as most Christians have no idea or interest in the historic foundations of their faith, they may be unaware that this obscene concept is part of church doctrine. However, few Westerners, Christians and non-Christians alike, have escaped the traumatic influence of this, quote, original curse, unquote, and the grip it has held on the testes of our culture. The child and perhaps millions of other sensitive young viewers of the program became victims of a form of spiritual sexual child abuse as real and as deleterious as any physical molestation. Those feelings were not, quote, dirty. They were a natural and wholesome unfolding of the creative impulse of his own innermost being. Feelings, if encouraged, nurtured, and mastered in an environment free of imposed guilt, can be the key to the liberation of the soul. But like countless generations before him, at the very moment of his awakening, he was shamed into denying, repressing, and perverting all that divine electricity each of us share with all creation. Eastern, as well as enlightened Western thought, as readers of Dr. Hyatt's book will discover, traditionally have been more enlightened on this point. The conscious utilization of these energies for spiritual illumination is a science and an art developed over centuries of practice. In contrast with praying to God to help you not enjoy your sexuality, the gods of the East set examples of divine eroticism. Brahma and Saravasti, Vishnu, Lakshmi, Shiva, Kali, all provide divine archetypes for worshippers to emulate in action, thought, meditation, and sexual intercourse. Now, under the heading Sex Magic, I have a little epigram from Crowley. Once you've proved that God is merely a name for the sex instinct, it appears to me not far from the perception that the sex instinct is God. There is perhaps no more despised and sometimes revered figure in modern religious literature than Aleister Crowley. And remember, this is 1988 I'm writing this. So Crowley wasn't the superstar then as he is now. His tireless exploration of the extremes of spiritual experience and his outrageous behavior were surpassed only by his mastery of the English language and his ability to communicate his conclusions to serious students. Today, over 40 years, wow, talking 70 now. Today, over 40 years since his death, his writings have reached a level of international popularity never approached during his lifetime. Not even his worst detractors deny his influence on the esoteric sciences. The quality of his numerous published works reveals a genius of unmatched stature. Yet, in my opinion, his greatest contribution to mankind was one of the smallest works attributed to him. And this is what we've been talking about for the last month, nearly. The revelation is called Liber al vel Legis, better known as the Book of the Law. Dictated, today some people might say channeled, to Crowley in 1904 by a, quote, praeter-human intelligence, unquote, calling itself Aiwass, the minister from the forces ruling the earth at present. That's a quote. The Book of the Law has become for some the primary revealed word of the modern spiritual aeon. Details of the magical workings performed by Crowley and his wife, Rose, preliminary to the reception of the Book of the Law, can be found in Crowley's best biography, and this was at the time, The Eye in the Triangle, by Israel Regardie. Now, if I was writing this today, I would mention The Eye in the Triangle, of course, but I'd refer you to Perdurabo by Dr. Richard Kaczynski. Like everything connected with Crowley, the Book of the Law simultaneously inspires and repels. When I read it for the first time, I was so stunned by the contents that I followed Crowley's instructions at the end of the text and ceremoniously burned the book. Afterwards, feeling very foolish, I immediately began searching for another copy to study and cherish. Passing of years only increases its significance to me. Under the heading Infinite Love. Briefly, there are 3 chapters attributed to the Egyptian gods, Nuit, Hadit, and Rahur-Kuit, respectively. Nuit is infinite space. She's represented as the goddess bending over like the arch of the night sky. She is the universe ultimately expanded, and her body contains all stars, galaxies, and the sum of all possibilities of every kind. If infinity is symbolized by a circle, Nuit is the circumference. Her divine lover, Hadit, is also infinite, but absolute contraction. He is any point which has the experience of the possibilities inherent in Nuit. He is the dot in the center of the circle. Here we have 2 infinities, one ultimately expanded and large, one totally contracted and small. Now, if the circumference is infinite and the center is infinite, they are both equally everywhere. They're always in contact. They touch, they rub, they embrace everywhere. Lovers on a truly cosmic scale. This interplay of eternal contraction and expansion of 2 opposing infinities creates finity. This finite field of operation is the foundation of the phenomenal universe and is represented in the Book of the Law by the god of the 3rd chapter, Rahur-Kuit, the crowned and conquering child, the Lord of the present aeon. Meditation on such abstractions can be very rewarding. And here's a quote from the Book of the Law. I am above you and in you. My ecstasy is in yours. My joy is to see your joy. Above the gemmed azure is the naked splendor of Nuit. She bends in ecstasy to kiss the secret ardors of Hadit. And I am divided for love's sake, for the chance of union. This is the creation of the world, that the pain of division is as nothing and the joy of dissolution all. Within its verses, the diligent student can discover techniques which can only be described as patently tantric. Hadit, for example, clearly identifies himself with the Kundalini. I am the secret serpent coiled about to spring. In my coiling there is joy. If I lift up my head, I and my Nuit are one. If I droop down mine head and shoot forth venom, then is rapture of the earth, and I and the earth are one. Readers familiar with the Upanishads may recognize the imagery of this and other verses, elements of the Panchangini Vidya, the sacrifice of the 5 fires, and other even more esoteric sexual teachings. Sex magic in the Gnostic Catholic Church. Now that you know all this is only an allegory for the sex act, your quest has become to discover that for which the sex act is an allegory. And that's an epigram from I.Z. Guilford, Letters from Papa. In the sanctuary of the Gnosis, the 9th degree of Ordo Templi Orientis is a secret technique of sex magic. And I've got a footnote here that I thought was probably wise to put in 1988 when I wrote this. At the risk of disillusioning thrill-seeking dilettantes of the occult, paranoid former investigative reporters, ill-informed New Age aura fluffers, psychotic television evangelists, or my mother, I feel I must reveal that the O.T.O rituals do not include animal or human sacrifice, cattle mutilation, forced copulation with members of either sex or inanimate objects, blood feasts, or games of sudden death twister. The graded structure of the O.T.O is designed to prepare the individual to understand and completely apply this technique for magical purposes and spiritual enlightenment. The secret is so simple it could be revealed in 3 well-chosen words, but speech cannot adequately elucidate the full scope of its underlying theory. Like a universal solvent, it penetrates to the very heart of the mechanism of creation. The elements used contain within themselves all possibilities, and the 9th degree operator must not only be a skilled magician, but also a disciplined yogi. Unlike Goetia or other more traditional forms of magic where the magician is never quite sure of the success of the operation when performed, the success or failure of a 9th degree working is immediately, sometimes painfully obvious. It never fails to achieve a result. Whether or not it is the desired result depends entirely upon the skill of the operator. And this is a quote from Christopher Hyatt from Undoing Yourself. Ritual is the tying together of things, emotions, events, and environments through the process of spontaneous imagination with the, and this is all caps, will to manifest. And this is from the Mass itself. And for as much as meat and drink are transmuted in us daily into spiritual substance, I believe in the miracle of the Mass. The primary ritual of the O.T.O is Liber 15, the Mass of the Gnostic Catholic Church. When celebrated publicly, the technique is executed symbolically. When celebrated privately, it is operated overtly. Consistent with the Gnostic tradition, the transubstantiation of the elements of the Mass, or the host and the wine, requires the participation and contribution of 2 celebrants. The priestess assumes the identity of the goddess Nuit. Here's a quote. I am the blue-lidded daughter of sunset. I am the naked brilliance of the voluptuous night sky. And the priest, Hadit. I am the flame that burns in every heart of man and in the core of every star. I am life and the giver of life, yet therefore is the knowledge of me, the knowledge of death. After preliminary purifications and consecrations, they initiate a process of mutual arousal, culminating in the mystic marriage where the elements, now charged, are combined. They are then Eucharistically consumed to manifest as the desired object of the operation. Anyone wishing to discover and master this most precious jewel of the sanctuary of the Gnosis should make a serious and perpetual study of the Mass. Many O.T.O lodges celebrate it regularly, and it is usually open to all sincere and interested individuals. Now, Wilson's 23rd Law. I've talked about Bob Wilson quite a bit. He introduced a couple of the works that Christopher Hyatt and I would write. But anyway, in Tantra, magic or life, study means nothing if it's not accompanied by practice and experimentation. Don't be afraid to fail. You'll learn much more from your disasters than from your successes. So get them out of the way. You'll probably live. The secrets of Western Tantra contain the essence of many psycho-spiritual yoga, which reflects the essence of many ancient tantric techniques. However, unlike most books on the subject, Dr. Hyatt gives the reader actual methods which can be used now. This allows the aspirant to experience directly the secret of the great work. He hides nothing, but it's up to you to do it. Don't wait until you feel you completely understand it. Don't wait until you read another book. Don't wait for the right teacher. Don't wait for the right partner. Don't wait until you attend one more seminar. Don't wait to talk it over with your doctor. Don't wait until you've seen the gypsy. Don't wait for your Saturn return. Don't wait until you lose weight. Don't wait until you've perfected the theory. You'll never perfect the theory of anything. Don't wait until you get your act together. If you're afraid, do it anyway. Do it, do it, do it. Then do it every day. Love's the law, love under will. Okay. That's that. Okay, again, that was from the wonderful book, Secrets of Western Tantra, published by Falcon something, or maybe both Falcon somethings. Anyway, until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other, and get lucky. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.